then because I was already trying to stream. Okay, I've stopped it. Moina, please confirm we are streaming
Yes, it's live now.
now. Okay, great. So thank you very much, everybody. So first, I want to say thank you, everybody, for participating in this thing. And I know the time was short, but the idea is to ensure that we now go back. My task to you would be you go back to your smaller groups to work on this thing, work on it again in your smaller account. This particular thing, redo it. In you redoing it, because you have now seen the questions that are possible, go back to your online learning. Listen again and say, okay, if I wanted to do this thing, now that I've seen the questions they asked me, let me listen back to the video. And why I'm giving you this feedback as an academic. Like I used to teach my students that the way the brain is configured is the best form of learning. Like when you've seen a question, when your brain starts to ask a question, the moment you are learning it, it is sticking to your head. How do I mean? I'm sure typically in your day-to-day this thing, when you say, oh, have you seen BMW 2024? You will say, no, I've not seen it. I can bet you before the week we run out, as you are going on the road, you will see BMW 2024. You know what happened? Because somebody asked that question of your brain starts to find answers to it. So it means that subconsciously, your brain is on the lookout for that particular thing. So it is not as if the BMWs were not there. It is because your brain was not asking. So right now that you've seen these case study scenarios, your brain is asking. So if you go back to your course and truly go and listen, it will supply you the answers like, I'll be like, oh my, oh my, oh my. So please, it is key that we are not just coming here. After all, I did not mark it. I did not grade you. I did not, we didn't grade you. Nothing, no mark, no 60, something. It's just feedback. Why? Because we want you to then translate what you are learning into field, right? So that is my general thing. But then first, one of the things I want to do first is we want to hear from our facilitators. So maybe I'll go first with Mrs. Becky. You have 5 minutes. So 2 things you could do with that 5 minutes is basically first your general observation, then your experts' general feedback, like a pattern word to them. So is she here? Okay, please unmute yourself and let's hear from you regarding project management. You can't hear, okay? Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. Good evening once again. So
Good
I was
evening.
about giving my feedback before as usual, the host just ended it. Okay, so I was explaining to my team that I observed that they were arguing about which is actually very fantastic because in projects you are surrounded by experts. This one will tell you this in real life it's like that because you're not expected to work with dummies, okay? Because you have different experts in different fields. Now somebody said no, it has to be agile. Somebody said no, it has to be hybrid. Somebody said it has to be waterfall. But looking at the question talks about building a digital e-learning platform. So by that, based on my experience, so it is purely agile. I see them saying hybrid. So okay, it's purely agile. And then somebody else also asked who's going to be responsible for the risk. Now, if you're dealing with agile projects, the whole team will be responsible for the risk because anybody can identify risk at any point in time. Okay. Now, if you're doing a waterfall traditional project, you could assign a risk manager, which means you're into construction, you are into building, you could have a risk manager. Then the third point I want to note is when you are using agile method, you should have something called minimum viable products. It's called MVP. Okay, so you want to build a software because this is digital learning platform. And then you're not expected to have everything complete at a go. It is not a predetermined resources that you are using because as you are building it, you're taking it back to your stakeholders to check, is this okay? Sometimes you might even do a prototype. to check if this is fine. And by that time, you see that you do, hello? Am I still on?
I can hear you. You're on. I was just,
Okay.
I was sharing this thing again, what's it
So
called? So that they could,
I was
look
saying
back at
that
the
you
questions.
have something called minimum viable product, MVP. So with that, you're able to build your e-learning platform incrementally. What am I trying to say? For example, the bank app that we use, you could see some feature there today. Tomorrow you see another feature, then the next feature. Even our WhatsApp, these are all software products. They are all agile products. So, but so good so far. The team has been wonderful. They all tried. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your feedback. And I'm just smiling because like in my head, I was like, okay, of course, as I should have just chosen either they say they're building something online. Like, of course, you cannot be doing traditional project management initiation. Who has time for that? You keep have to, like, you have to do daily stand-ups. Yeah, please go on.
One more thing again. When they were talking about the roles and responsibilities, the way they listed it, fantastic, it's fine. But they also need to consider the kind of organization that they are operating in. Now we have the matrix organization, we have the functional organization, we also have the projectized. Okay, the functional, which means you are reporting, a project manager is reporting to a functional manager in a particular department. They don't have a projectized environment like that. The matrix is a combination of the two. So while they are listing the roles, responsibility, they need to be mindful of the kind of organization, they are trying to execute that project.
Thank you so much. As I think that was I was going to ask you that question that did they just list it as per the 13 on the course that there must be an agile coach, there must be a chemical, all that, yada, 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 you must have that stuff, or you actually asked yourself, like, students are placed in the role of project for a non-profit organization in Kenya that aims to build digital learning centers in rural areas. So, like, have you, did you first stop to ask, imagine this NGO in Kenya. It's an NGO in Kenya. They did not say it's an international NGO. So what is the capacity? What is the resources available to them? So before you start listing teams,
these are the risks. These are the risks, because I wanted them to actually identify the risks that would they be able to actually afford this? Okay, but that's why in Agile we emphasize on minimum viable products so that you can just have something for them, and then can they really afford it? Then your content, are there bugs that could come? So they need to check all those risks while building this, and that's why you must give your project on incremental basis. So you keep adding to it, until you get what you want to achieve.
Thank you so much. And that is, I had to tell, I said, you know what, I want to break people down, because what I realized, why we had to do mentorship this time around? I realized that we posted project managers on internship program at the end of their discipline. And they were, it's like they were living a lie. I don't know how to explain it. Like, they posted it to a small organization, and you are living a lie. That's the best way I can explain it. Like, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, where is this person supposed to find the resources? Like, you shouldn't be asking the person for a Microsoft something team that they will pay for, where you can go and find Airtable and just use the free version for that particular, like, it to save you what you needed, right? So, which is what I wanted. Like, I'm glad that you're the one mentioning this, because you have someone who has worked on big projects, small projects, different. Yes. So you understand the moment I step into this place, this is not the time to be quoting things as if they have $1 billion sitting somewhere else that you don't understand. So, and I think that is where experience and being on site comes in. Learn methodology, learn who should be roles and responsibility, adapt it to where you are going or where you are. And thank you so much for that feedback in terms of the roles and responsibilities. So my advice to project people will now be like, based on the feedback she has given to you, go realistically this time around in your smaller groups. You people have accountability groups. More realistically, like, even ask ChatGPT and say, a small NGO in Kenya, like, what would be their, how much will they have?
Yes, just
do you understand, to execute it? So that you are not, out of how much you think they have, you are now asking yourself, like, who are the people that absolutely needs to be on this team? Like, so that you can cut down nonsense from people, like, because in the project team, one person can serve as a product and a project manager.
Sure.
Like, do you understand? Sure. So it depends on the size of the project. Do you understand? Whereas in some other projects, you will have 5 project managers because that project is so huge.
That's right.
So it's key. It's a point I really wanted to mention because of what we are seeing amongst the interns we post out. They are not adapting. They are not adapting, that's the word, from knowledge to real life on-site stuff. So thank you for that.
Now, sorry,
please go
doctor.
on. Please go on.
Even in theory, even in PMI word, they always tell you that there's something called tailoring, like the word adaptive now. Projects are not the same. So when you get to a particular industry, you tailor. So what you have learned so far, you tailor it. It's not a must that you must do, okay, it has to be this, and it has to be straight like this. No, there's something called tailoring.
Thank you so much. Then you mentioned something around identify project management tools to explain why these tools is. So what's your feedback on the tools aspect of what they did?
No, the tool is fine. The tool, because one, they considered, a virtual team, which is fantastic. They also consider how they can get, feedback immediately. It's cool. That's why I didn't mention it. But the only issue I have is when they were listing the roles, who's responsible for this, they were actually following a waterfall kind of project, or let's say hybrid, so to say. But because
instead of the agile methodology.
Yes, because I saw that they didn't quite understand that this project is a pure agile. Because you're not building. And then if somebody also mentioned, we must build, because probably the word build that they use in the question, of course, you can build a website, you build software, okay? In terms of, if you want to channel this project as a waterfall, that means those roles are not complete because you must get a permit, you must get land, you must all those testing and all of that. So it's not just part of it. So this is purely agile. But for the tools, they are okay for a remote, job, and then the cultural aspect of it. Yeah, nobody mentioned culture. Nobody mentioned culture because the way it is now, you're going to be working with diverse things, and then you have to think about the time, the language differences. Okay, then think about the network. So far, so good. In Nigeria, for example, if in that project they have team from Nigeria, you should know that we all have network issues. They will tell you, oh, this is not working or that's not working, and the timing as well. So these are what they should consider when
they should have probably quickly started putting things down on their RICS document to say, please note that network will not work.
It was just because, assuming they understood that this project is purely an agile project, they should have taken those into consideration because they were contemplating, is it waterfall? Is it agile? Oh, no, okay, now it's hybrid. So that's why they had to list the tools, and they left the cultural differences and left the timing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's such a robust feedback that you're giving to them. So, Zainab, are you still in this room? Maybe I'll give you like 2 minutes if there are other observations that Mrs. Becky has not covered in terms of how they did their work. Of course, and you see that thing that you first mentioned about, there was a lot of fight going on about, I was in the content room, right? That's the first feedback I gave to them. I said, there are 2 major things you should know. There's how to do the work, and there's the work. You people had absolutely no team coordination, no workflow establishment, like there was a lot of, I say you people spend like 30 minutes even trying to establish workflow. That cannot happen the second time. So I like that feedback. I think this is their first workshop. So it's all right if all that is there. So hopefully the next workshop, we are seeing an improved coordination system. So Zainab, are you still here? Please use the raise hand button. Zainab, are you still here? I'm not sure she said. Okay, I've seen you. Are you able to speak, Zainab? If not, let's move to Sekina Bilo, who was the mentor for the product.
Okay, good evening, everybody, once again.
Good evening.
Like Miss Becky mentioned earlier, so my feedback to the project team was you have a case study. In this situation, you have a problem that you want to solve. You are better off investing your energy in thinking through it, do in-depth thinking, and then that way you can have better direction as to how to go about the project. Because for like the first 30 minutes, it was just on and on. Okay, these are the roles, and we're beginning to talk about construction manager. Ha. I'm wondering, you want to build a digital, like, you really have no business with the construct. What are you constructing? Nothing. What are you said? You're not building. You're not building a school. You're not building a data center or anything like that. And like Dr. Aderisola said earlier, in an NGO in Kenya, how much do they really have? There's nothing here that says it's sponsored by UNESCO. There's nothing here that says it's sponsored by UNICAF or something like that. So you need to work according. So that way, the first 30 minutes that was spent in deliberating who is this person, who is not this person, until someone then came, I don't know who that person was, then came and said, okay, wait a minute, we need to go back to this question. So you have already spent so much time, and that's how it could be when you have a new project at hand, where you have a new project, all you want to just do is get head on into the project without critical thinking. You get into the project, and halfway into the project, just realize, okay, wait a minute, I'm not even sure I'm going with the concept of what this thing is supposed to be about. And that way, you will have lost resources. Your stakeholders would have, some of them will have stepped pulling out. Imagine it's a typical example is you have a JV partner that comes and says, okay, I want to build this Airbnb. And then you go into the place and you start to build luxurious apartments. Halfway, you would have spent so much money, and the JV partner comes and says, okay, I'm no longer interested in this. How do you continue the project? The project is already dead on arrival. So you need to conceptualize it, think about it at the very initial stage. So that way, the time and energy and your workflow going forward would be a lot more, it will be a bit seamless, rather than you have gone 30 minutes, 45 minutes into the conversation before you are now then walking it back to see, okay, this is not what we're asked.
What they asked us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that feedback. And I really like it. Like, what would a construction manager be doing on a digital product and everything like that? Like, it goes back to deeply first thinking. And this is my feedback, because I've given this feedback to people in my content team, is I learned this at the Unleash Innovation Lab, which is where we do products development and things like that. And they said, you are better off using half the time to think, conceptualize what you want to do, and use the other half to implement, than rushing off to go to running off to say, okay, let's shall do. Because once you don't think deeply about what is really before you, you would be running, you didn't think deeply about it. You didn't think about it briefly. So that is key. And that is one of the things I told people in my content. I said, you should have discussed the question first. Discuss the question first. What is the ask in this question? What are the peculiarities of this question? What are the things we need to first spot? It's in Kenya. It's an NGO. It's like, think of, and please, for the sake of everybody, whether it is project this, I always say it like last, everything is about the money. Like, it's about, when I say it's about the money, whether you're the project manager, you're the product manager, you're the content listing, it's about the money. Like, what are the resources available to you, period? What or possible resources available to you? Then that will now determine every other conversation that is going to follow. So thank you very much, Zainab. I'm going to let Sekina Bello, but before we just then, I don't want to keep Mrs. Becky and Zainab anymore, because they've given their own feedback. But if you still want to be here, please, I'll just in case any project has a question after this, but I want Sekina to give our own feedback, then we can take questions. So Sekina, please kindly use the word Sekina, the product mentor. I'm trying to find that in the comment section. Okay, Sekina, I've seen you. Can you unmute yourself and give your feedback about the product team?
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Doctor. So yes, I had some nice people in my group. The first thing I'd like to say is that I appreciated the team effort. There was a lot of teamwork, yes. That's one of the good feedback I'd give. There was teamwork, everyone was working through the content together. You know, the part where you mentioned walk through the questions first, that was one of the first things they did. I mean, I had one of the participants always saying, can we go back to what the ask is? Let's ensure that we are following as to what we're supposed to deliver. So yes, that was very good. That was very, very impactful as well. And I believe the 3 points that were to be covered here, the traits, we had a lot of feedback with regards, okay, a product manager must have these traits, a product manager must do this, a product manager must do that, which were very clear, which were very concise, yes. But at the same time, I feel there was a bit of a disconnect with what the traits are and what their vision is. I had a participant, which I really, really appreciated, and I think I told her that you have to ensure that your product vision is clear. If you're not clear on your product vision, you're going to get sidelined. You're going to have to work with the project team. You're going to work with the design team, the UI UX team. You're going to work with the development team. And you must lead these cross-functional teams. Because at the end of the day, every single person will still revert back to you to explain to them what your vision is. Because if your vision is not clear, they can't help you to materialize this vision. So you must always go back to your vision. So that was also communicated to the team. I'd also like to add that you have to ensure that the project context as to what type of methodology you're using. Everyone was quite, you know, they all agreed on Agile very quickly, very, very early on. I mean, you're building a digital product. It's a no-brainer. It has to be Agile, because why would you not use Agile? There is nothing else you can do. You have to, I mean, someone mentioned how you have to ensure that your daily sprints, your iterations are done effectively. All of that was communicated, but the team still needs to go deeper. And I kept telling them, your vision, your aim, your objective, the roles, what functionality the product is going to be, that's what's going to guide you to communicate this to the other teams you're going to be working with, which is essentially the role of a product manager here. If your vision is not clear, nobody will understand what you want to build. And you're building an app for, you know, the underprivileged population, basically. So you must take in a lot of factors. One of the first traits that were mentioned was empathy. You have to understand, you have to be able to communicate. You must communicate to the stakeholders. You must communicate to everybody involved. While you're communicating to the stakeholders, you must also communicate to the investors. Do you have investors for your app, or are you building it by yourself? What's going to be the profitability? You must also be a data analytic personnel, because if you don't put data behind your research and everything, nobody will invest in the application. But if you're building an application for an organization that already has funding, you also need to be able to communicate this to the stakeholders as well on the business side. So yeah, all of this, I think I had enough time to give feedback to my team. We're working through the process together. So it was quite, I expect more from them, because now there's a direction. Everyone was giving their own ideas one by one. I know a product manager tends to work a bit, you know, with your own vision in your head, but you must ensure that you share this vision with everybody. You must ensure that everyone aligns, and you must be able to receive feedback, be flexible, be adaptable to everybody's feedback, so that you can ensure that, like Ms. Becky mentioned, the minimum viable product is well established before you now start adding other features. You start adding the nice to haves, but your must haves must be clear. So yeah, that's what it is.
Thank you so much, Sekina, for that. And I'm happy that in your group, like, you know, the coordination, because again, why you are able to say this, it's again reiterates, like, if you are able to first have an understanding of what the ask is, the rest of the work is easier. So which is what maybe the project and the content team lacks. The first, let's dissect this question, this scenario, what we've been asked. And I like what you said there about your vision. And that's the thing about program managers. And fun fact, okay, let me, I'll always tell the story. The first time I was going to organize the GM, so that's a Global Mentorship Conference in 2021, of course it's a product, right? It's a conference. And I went to stakeholders, give me 1 minute. So basically, I was rambling on and on, and the guy was like, where is your concept notes? where you explained all these things? And I'm like, okay, because this guy is Ghanaian, he works in an international NGO. What he does, that is what he really does, like product innovation. Well, like, Jerry, can you, before we gather stakeholders, can you just have a concept note and pour down all the things that is in your head so that this did? And I just said, okay. In fact, on this program, like the precursor of this program, which is the WF, that is Workplace Foundational Skills. I think on the modules, I'm not sure which module, but there was a particular module we taught them concept notes, because I believe that is foundational. Like it doesn't even matter what you want to do. I feel like beyond the product manager, everybody should be able to understand how to build concept notes so that it's easy to explain especially now, a product manager, it is a must. Like you must understand how to communicate your vision. And I like that you mentioned that is what, I think that's the only deficiency that you mentioned, that they need to be able to, build concept notes, communicate their vision to, so that, and be flexible with adjusting that, this thing. And the last thing you said about MVPs, before you come and start saying, the thing in the hub should go like this, I said, Auntie, build MVP first. Is it functional? And all that stuff. Actually, I feel like a product manager on a team, not even I feel like, a product manager on a team is the product owner, technically. So it's like the strategic work of that team lies on you. And what is a product? A product is what, to the stakeholders that is dropping money, it is something that must make them money. Or, well, even if it's an NGO, I always say it is something that must give them returns, whatever that returns is. Maybe it is money, or it is for them to be able to say they impacted 10,000 people. It must give them the returns to the people who are dropping the funds. And a product, so the person you want to also sell it in the market, must meet their solution. So you must think about both sides, as in all the stakeholders involved. Will these products that you're going to present to them satisfy all stakeholders that are involved? So all that should always be put into consideration. But I'm at least happy that you said they understood the concept notes. Thank you so much, Sekina, for that feedback. Thank you. I'm really, really, thank you so much. And God bless you. So we can take, we can take maybe a few questions, maybe one question from products, one question from projects, before we then let our mentors go this evening. So if you have a question from the products team, or you have a question from the project team, just use the raise hand button. We'll take that question. Then I would probably, if there's a question from the content team, I will take that question last. Let's let product and project first take their question before we go. Please quickly, time is fast spent. We are 10 minutes, we've shot our time by 10 minutes. So please, no questions. No, I can't see any, or is it me? Adi. Okay, Adi Bojang, please, your question. And please kindly state, is it product or project that you're asking the question?
My question is personal. I don't know how best can you guys help me. I am in the content program, the same time in the project. So I don't know how to go about this live project today. I have to choose one, then the other one, I don't know how to go about it, because I am only one person. And then all are
we may need to discuss that maybe outside of this meeting, so that we can save time. Yeah, we may need to discuss that outside of this meeting, but let's take questions around the project. So thank you, Adi. So Oge Mbanefo, please ask your question.
My question is, good evening, everyone. Sorry.
Good evening.
My question is, the waterfall method, is it ever used? Are there cases, are there scenarios where it's used? I understand that the agile method is basically for digital programs, but the waterfall method, is it still being used? Is there a condition where it can be used, and outstanding conditions where it can be used? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute the project manager mentor. Where she? Let me quickly find her somewhere to unmute her so that she can. That's Mrs. Becky. Okay, that's her name. B. I'm asking her to unmute. That's for the project management mentor.
Okay. Answer to that question. Waterfall is still being used. Sometimes it's called traditional method. So you find people using waterfall in the construction, manufacturing. Okay, so with your building, because now the idea of waterfall is that you have your resources well planned out. You do detailed planning where you want to go into such projects. Now you want to build a 6-story building. You can't tell me that, oh, before I lay the foundation, I must do the roofing or the lintel. No, you must follow it step by step by step by step till completion. That is waterfall. Also traditional project method. And then for agile, we know it's basically software, like software. Then coming to hybrid. Why you will use hybrid also in construction or in manufacturing sector? If, for example, you want to construct a bridge, like those bridges that we have, of course, you're going to make use of waterfall. All those bridges you see they're all waterfall, traditional project. And then you want to monitor if this bridge is working effectively, or possibly there is a toll somewhere. At that time, you can now install a software or a monitoring gadget whereby you will be monitoring the activities on that bridge from your office. Then that project becomes hybrid project. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. As I was just smiling, as immediately I heard about, like Zainab, actually, I don't know if she's still in this room. She works in the construction sector. So the first thing I was going to say is, do you understand? She works as in, I've heard enough of pile, let's put pile. I think I mentioned that to you. Yeah, exactly. I've heard enough of that thing that's so I'm like, is enough. I don't want to hear it again. So, which is why she needed to come and intern with us. Why? Because she has done traditional, thing, all those things in construction for so long. But she was like, you know what? I would like to join your EdTech and see how I can then do project management in the agile, where things are constantly changing.
I did that as well. Right? I did that because I started my project management work in manufacturing sector, and then where we do a lot of machines, we couple them. But as time went on, things changed. Trend was changing. Then the clients came on board and said, okay, how do we effectively, monitor these machines while on site? And they came up with software. At that point, we have moved from waterfall to hybrid. Because of course, we're going to couple this equipment, this system using the waterfall traditional method, and then installing those softwares, it becomes hybrid projects, not agile like in total, but most software projects they make use of agile method.
Thank you. Zaina, please unmute yourself. I can see your hand is up. Yeah, you have something to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so when she asked that question, it just sounded very much like me. It sounded like my day-to-day activities. So yes, you still use the waterfall method, but to be honest, in my opinion, it's becoming extinct. Because even in the very hands-on construction environment, with the volatility of things these days, you can't, yes, like she has heard a lot of piling. If you are going to do a high-rise building, you have to do the piles first before you get somewhere. A perfect example of this synergy between agile and waterfall is, I don't know if anybody, there's a particular bridge project being done by Julius Berger somewhere around Ojota in Lagos, where typically, if this was 20 years back, it would have gone in a very linear method. You start from one abutment and you end it at one abutment. But now, if you continue like that, the amount you started your project with at the beginning, by the time you're done, because you want to follow it systematically, you go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3. By the time you're done with the project, when you do your math and you do your calculation of, okay, what resources expended and all of that, you realize you'll be 80% of the time you might be in deficit if you are not finding a way to bring together a synergy of your working agile and so working in linear method. If you, I don't know if I can share maybe a typical Gantt chart of what a construction project management sequence looks like, where you have your, let's say, pre-works and your works itself and your post-works. It has to overlap, because if you're not doing that, you firstly lose out on the projects that you're supposed to get, because someone will tell you, I have someone that can do this for this particular timeline. And you are saying, no, I have to do this if I do this, but you can do this simultaneously. So why are you having to stick to the extinct way of doing things? So in my opinion, the waterfall method is beginning to go extinct because the world is changing. Things are becoming digitalized. People have better insight on how to go about things. So yes, that's my contribution to your question. So yeah, people still
Thank you
use it,
so
but
much.
not
Thank you
very.
so much, Zainab. Like it's more of hybrid these days than pure waterfall.
Yes.
Thank you. So Teju, please, Teju, ask your question. Maybe that'll be the last question for this evening. Then we can. Teju, please go ahead.
All right. Good evening, all, and thank you for this opportunity. I have two questions. Excuse me. The first one I would like to ask is, who is responsible for sourcing those who will be members of the project team? So do you make use of the personnel that your sponsor is providing, or do you, as the project manager, need to source the personnel yourself from within your network? Then the second question has to do with the task that was given to the project team. So this is just for clarity and for knowledge purpose. I appreciate the feedback that was shared, but it said building learning centers. So if it had to deal with construction, would we say hybrid was okay, or would we still go with agile? Yes, if it was an app, we would understand, but if it's going to be physical centers, what would be the best approach, hybrid or agile? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've asked our mentor, Mrs. Becky, to unmute herself. Please, would you like to respond to that?
Okay,
First
so
question, yes. First question was around who is responsible for sourcing the individuals, and the second thing was like that if the learning centers were physical, would it be hybrid or yeah?
so for the first question, once the stakeholder appoints the project manager, they'll give him something called project charter. Okay, so that project charter will give him the authorization to handle the project, having all the scope of work detailed on the project charter. Thereafter, the project manager will now start appointing the teams. And he will in turn, with the team he has appointed, create something called team charter for proper control. So the project manager is responsible for gathering the team, bringing them together to work on the project. Now, for the second question, he asked if building is total hybrid
learning centers. Yeah, if it was physical learning centers in that place, that will be
if it's a physical learning center, really, there are two things there. Like I mentioned earlier, the first, you must start the building with traditional method, that is waterfall. Okay, and then you incorporate some software, like maybe you want to start sharing information and all of that. So it's basically hybrid.
Thank you so much for that feedback. Wow, we've taken like about 3 hours of your time this evening, but I don't know about any other person. Yeah, please go ahead.
Most projects that uses waterfall, they are manufacturing industry. For example, a company like Toyota, they make use of waterfall for coupling. And then they installed some other software. Sometimes they had hybrid cars, if you remember, Toyota had hybrid cars. So that makes Toyota, brand becomes hybrid because they make use of waterfall and agile.
Thank you so much for this thing. I am happy, we did this. I'm happy with the feedback we've had so far. So I'm happy we did this because it's nothing. I always tell everyone on this team that nothing trumps experience. Nothing talks. And the fact that this is just beyond experience for us. We've had conversations where we have had people from, different perspective about people, like our mentors in the room who are giving their destiny based on their own life experiences. And having these healthy conversations ensures that you are then taking their experience and using it in your learning this thing. Because at the end of the day, what is on the course is like learning, the methods, the theory, who is the project manager, who is this, is that, learning all that thing. It is these workshops that turns them into practical this. And that is what the Skill for Work Academy is about. Like, we want to ensure that we are not just raising project managers are certified, but now say, yeah, project certified project manager, come on board, come and do this thing. And they cannot turn theory to practical learning because they read to pass. But in the real sense of it, it is skills that will deliver the job on site. So these are the things that we have done to ensure that this thing. Thank you very much, everybody. Special thank you to our 3 mentors that are here today: Sakina Bello for the product, Mrs. Becky for the project, and Zainab Adio also for the project. Thank you so much. And of course, next week will be our live project where we'll give you a live project, something similar to do, same thing, case scenarios, but the difference is that time everybody will now come and you'll do PowerPoint presentation, you will present, will listen to you, then the facilitator gives feedback and all that. So that is the difference. Unlike when we are now, because what this is we saw how you worked in this one. We saw how you worked, like all that going. We had to see how you were working. That's the difference between community project and life project. In life projects, we may not really see how you work. We put it into breakout rooms. You go and do your work. You come back and present the finished work to us, and we give you feedback on the finished work. You know why that is? So that way, when your boss gives you work in this thing, you don't expect that you be small thing, you ask them question, small thing, you ask them. So we need to have a fine balance of independence and support, which is what you actually see at work. Nobody wants a puppet that they have to be told everything before they will go and actually, take initiative and do the work. So thank you so much, this thing. And of course, to our students who are here, please, I will repeat, this is hard. It's hard work. It's technical school. It is hard skill school. There is no 2 ways to go about this. So get to work, and in 5 weeks, you will thank yourself for being a skilled project manager, skilled product manager, and skilled content strategist. On that note, I'm going to allow everyone to unmute themselves. Please keep your questions coming in the community. If you have questions, keep it coming in the community, and that will be it. So everyone, you can unmute yourself and say your good night and have an amazing week ahead.
Thank you so much, Doctor. God bless you.
Thank
you,
to all the
Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so
God
much.
bless you.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night. Good night.